Well, welcome to another week of News Game Plus. I'm Georgina, and I'm here with New Game Plus executive producer Alexander O'Callaghan. How you doing, Jason?
Oh my lord! I mean, look, yeah. If you ever wonder the most pointless podcast you could ever listen to, Georgina Downer and Alexander Downer is perhaps like, I mean, at least Johnny Howard would be interesting in the sense that you could get an idea of what's going on in that little spud of a brain of his. But, gee, I mean, of all vapid wastes of human energy, Georgina Downer and fucking Alexander Downer have to be one and two. Like.
Do you reckon they keep talking about video games in their politics podcast?
I mean, look, it'd be one of those things where Alexander Downer would be like, did they try and sell video games to Saddam Hussein? And if they did try and sell video games to Saddam Hussein, did they bribe him? And if they did, I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen. So,
Do you remember that?
I remember
Yeah, that time
AWB.
they took it. They remember that time they took all the games off the East Timorese. Anyway, let's do some video game stuff. I always like to throw something.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
So,
Come back here.
all right, cool. Well, I'm gonna open with. I tell you what, I reckon if there's ever the happiest person in the world that all that stuff happened to Gawker and Kotaku, I reckon has to be Jason Schreier because he's gone off now and he's done some more journalism. So he's really enjoying.
I've always said, for all the shit I will give Kotaku, Schreier is more right than he is wrong, and he's one of the very few who actually reports on a lot of issues. It's him, it's Slasher, it's Daniel Ahmad. There's a few on Twitter and stuff like that I would actually listen to as far as this kind of stuff goes. And it's just insane to me that. I'm definitely not sad that Gawker's gone. I mean, Peter Thiel's a scumbag, but I'm not sad that Gawker's gone, and they definitely laid the seeds of their own demise. But I'm glad Jason Schreier has a real job now.
Well, I mean, he's done an article which you probably read about Blizzard workers. Now, Blizzard, you did, yeah. Blizzard workers, if anyone hasn't seen it yet, and it is. Look, it's worth reading this. So find the article. I think it wrote from Bloomberg now, but basically, Blizzard workers have been sharing their pay anonymously on a spreadsheet. So they haven't been saying who they are, but they're saying what they are. And so they've been finding out effectively what everybody else gets paid. And I can tell you from the days I used to do corporate work, because I was corporate before I went out my own, when I had enough of that sort of clown show. I tell you what, hiding pay is really one way that companies are really scared of telling everyone what the pay is because they know it's all out of whack. They know that. They know there's favourites. They know there's people they've had to pay to keep for whatever reason. They know that there's useless people getting paid a lot. So they keep it secret, and they'll tell you like, oh, we can't tell you that because it'll disrupt the whatever balance of sort. And I read a book years ago by Ricardo Semler about Semco, a Brazilian company. I don't know if they're still around anymore, but this is a long time ago. I read the book, and he took over his father's company, and he couldn't be bothered. So he just started doing stuff like just outrageous stuff. And one of the things he did was he put a computer in the tea room. Anyone's worked in office knows the old tea room, and that had everybody's pay on it. And you could search any person in the company, including him, find out what they're getting paid, and then come review time, you had to list down, I think it was 3 people you needed to get your job done. And if you didn't appear on anybody's list, you were out. and that actually, the productivity in the company with that and other things went through the roof. And at the time, I think Brazil was going through a massive economic challenge of some sort. But yeah, it was one of those things that made everybody pretty happy. And they weeded out the clowns out of the company quick smart.
Well, I mean, from my point of view, it's not even necessarily about that. It's the fact of keeping pay secret only helps bosses. There is nothing to be gained by keeping your pay secret outside of potentially losing more money and like increasing the workplace benefits. Right, and that's my bullshit statement of the day. But like, yeah.
No, look, absolutely it does. And look, the other thing with Blizzard is everybody put their pay. They're all getting like less than 10% pay rises or something. Some people have been getting a pay rise of less than 50 cents per hour. A lot of the people who have been there for a long time say that they effectively now earn less than they did a decade ago. And these are people working on AAA games. Some of the pay amounts, people might be interested. If you're a producer or a senior engineer, you can get around 100 or 100K. That'd be like US dollars, so
Mm-hmm.
about 160, 70 here, I'm guessing, maybe 180. So that's good money if you did it purely on an exchange rate. But if you're a tester or someone else, you're basically on minimum wage. Um, Meanwhile, at the top end, and this happens at every company, and this is why they do like to keep a lot of things secret. The incoming CFO got a $40 million sign-on bonus. So,
Yeah, exactly.
um,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's the absurdity, and it's good to see. Look, I like seeing these articles because I've seen what happened. I mean, I lived through the '90s outsourcing craze and saw a lot of what happened in my time in corporate IT stuff, programming, and saw what was done to that industry. And I'm seeing video games now at least be better, in some ways better prepared. They're actually talking about unionizing. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be difficult for them. I remember in the '90s when the IT industry worldwide should have considered unionising, and we had the Australia Computer Society in Australia who actually took somebody to court saying that they fulfilled the purposes of a union and that there shouldn't be another one. And the Australian Computer Society then went and sat back while everybody was basically training their Indian replacements. And as I said
Mm.
before, nothing against the Indians, everyone's out to make a living, and good on them. They were doing the right thing by them, but our bosses weren't doing the right thing by us. So it's interesting to see this sort of discussion happen in video games, and I think it's, as somebody who saw it not happen in programming in the IT industry, at least in Melbourne, I find it fascinating to see that people are actually talking about it. I think it's a good thing.
Mm. Yeah, I
I
mean,
think it's going to be a
like I
challenge.
say, like, even locally, like I'm not, like I'm glad that GW or whatever it's called, and I mean I'm well known not to be the biggest fan of one of the main proponents of them, but at the same time I'll suck it up if it means that the working conditions for everyone goes up. I would rather raise one ship I don't think is worthy than let another nine sink just to prove that point. So, like to me, it's not necessarily about those kind of things. It's about making sure that, I mean, these companies are making like billions of dollars, hand over fist. They're making money, and they'll tell you that they can't afford, to do X, Y, Z. They absolutely can. There's just no will to do it, and you've got to make them have the will to do it. Otherwise, they won't, because they won't act in your best interest. So don't believe that they will. Like don't leave it to chance or pixie fairies. Just make sure that you've got what you can out of the bastards, because they're definitely going to get what they can out of you.
Well, as Paul Keating once said, in the race of life, always back self-interest because it's the only
Mm,
horse that's trying. Yeah, they actually last year apparently Blizzard cut hundreds of jobs and
they
asked
did.
staff
Yep.
to pick up the extra work. So look, I see. It's an interesting story. I think there's a challenge with unionizing in video games, and it comes down to supply and demand. We're
Mm,
coming into a world where employees are going to be everywhere because we're coming into coronavirus has accelerated what was already happening, and it has that in many cases. Most of what you're seeing is just stuff that was coming, but it's brought it forward about 10 years. And so really, when you're talking video games, the companies know they can find more testers, for example. They know that they'll get people to come in and want to do it for almost nothing because they just want to be part of the industry.
mm, mm.
So that's going
Yeah,
to be a
especially
challenge. Yeah.
especially a name attached to a big name like that. Like it used to be the same with EA locally when they bought out Fire Monkeys and stuff. Like, oh, I worked at EA and it's good to. I mean, even though EA never had really as good a name as Blizzard, and to be fair, Blizzard invented the Skinner box in gaming with Diablo
Mm.
2. At least they had the common decency to only charge you to pay for the game once. That was the difference. Um, but like there is that prestige of working for these companies that you've idealized growing up, and sometimes meeting your heroes can be the worst thing that's ever happened to you. So.
Yeah, no, I remember that when I met the producer of New Game Plus and he threatened to kill me.
Mm.
It was actually funny. Do you remember that? You said
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you ever treat my guys on the show like you treat those guys a good game, I'll kill you.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Good
true.
times. Anyway, so look, great work by Jason Schreier. It's a good article. Go see it. I think it's a as somebody, like I said, who lived through the IT outsourcing days and saw the unwillingness to unionise or even discuss it, and then when
Mm,
somebody tried to see it be scuttled by the Australian Computer Society, who I'll always be negative about because of that. I think it is interesting. I think it's going to be a challenge. I think also your risk with unionising it's a cliquey industry, and you don't want to just reinforce that. You want it to
the
be
only thing I
genuine.
would say is the only thing I would say is don't, and you have to know this knowing your circles, don't underestimate the libertarian streak in the IT industry. Everyone believes that they're there in their own merit. Everyone believes that they're special little snowflakes more than a lot of other industries I've dealt with, especially IT. Doesn't quite extend into games that badly, but it's still definitely a stream of it there because because programming and those kind of things are such self-sufficient work. They then mistake that for being the only person capable of X work. And I'm sure there are like maybe 100 developers in the world who are truly capable of anything beyond anyone's understanding, but they're the kind of people that we're not talking about. Do you know what I mean? So that's my worry for unions in IT industry, is that there's just this real heavy streak of libertarianism in there that I think runs contrary to the idea of collective bargaining.
That's actually spot on, because that's basically what I saw. I saw
Yep.
basically an industry that was pretty full of itself.
Mm.
Figured it was untouchable, and everybody would be able to come out. Everyone will get outsource that, but I'm going to be the one that's going to like do really well out of this. And
I'm going to float. Yeah,
that was sort of
I'm.
an
Yeah,
attitude.
I'm the turd that's going to float to the top of the bowl. And so like, and
Yeah.
from my point of view, it's that thing of like, they are outsourcing it to the Indians, and it's like, cool. So this new country that at that point had none of this kind of necessary thing, but they'd studied in England and they'd studied in Australia and they'd studied in all these places. The technology and the flow was starting to go back there, and let's say they were making 20% more mistakes, 30% more mistakes than local workers. If it's still cheaper to then get them to go back over their work and fix it, it's still cheaper, and that's the only thing they care about. They only care about driving money to shareholders, and 9 times out of 10, 90% of shareholders are already mega wealthy. Let's be real. Like the ideas of doing day trading and floating penny stocks and all that kind of stuff, it just doesn't happen like the way people think it does. And whether you think the people who were voted the Liberals in because of franking credits are the kind of people who, if they have a share portfolio, it's not something they actively engage in any meaningful way, or they would have known what a franking credit is. So
I know the difference between that and dividend imputation, but that's
yeah,
another story.
that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Anyway, look, and I want to be clear when I talk about outsourcing there, I've worked with and I've hired a lot of very talented Indian people. There's nothing at all wrong with their skills. It's just that's how the industry went. And in fact, I've always figured corporations were more racist than general population because
Yeah.
they hire them specifically to exploit them, and I think that's
Yes.
pretty ordinary
Yeah.
to do, and that's overlooked. So you're going to say?
No, that goes back to that thing of like, oh, why are they coming in and taking our jobs? Like, well, why are they being given away the jobs? Because they're like, for us who are used to this certain standard of living, the idea of working for, the minimum wage is now $19, $17, something like that. It's really high. And even then, it's like it's still not technically rising with. We have it better than other countries, of course, like America. But like it's not still rising with inflation. But why are you blaming that guy? Like, why are you blaming the poor bloke who is 2 years of work here building this place or working in the mines or whatever? It's going to set him up for 10 years. It's going to set his family up for 10 years. Like, why are you angry at them? Why aren't you angry at the pricks who gave him the job in the first place and took it offshore? Like, they made millions off your back and off that fella's back. So why the fuck are you angry at the other guy instead of being angry at the boss? And that's what is it? Lyndon Johnson's line is, tell the poorest white man that the Negro's picking his pocket, and you'll never. I can't remember what the quote is, but it's basically like, that they'll do the job for you because they'd rather hate they'd rather hate this difference than look up and see where the money's being siphoned to.
And a lot of what you see now is that sort of distraction on many levels right now.
Yeah.
Actually, in fact, I would say the only reason you don't see, from my experience working with Indian developers, a lot of them are very, very skilled. The only reason you don't see a lot of really major tech platforms come out of that part of the world is because they only come out of two countries, and they're the two countries who have the largest militaries and have
Yeah.
massive military spending in their IT. That's why you have their Facebook and your Weibo and your Twitter and Tencent and all that. Ultimately, it comes back to that. Anyway, let's move on. Next one. Oh boy, are these Sony fanboys excited? Because I said last week that I believe that exclusives were basically a bit of a wank. Most people only like exclusives because they are exclusive. So they'll bang on about the exclusives all day, but they didn't know them until they found out they're exclusive. And well, look, we have one, and this is to me is well.
Your favorite game? I know where this is headed.
My favorite game, and there's a few items about this, but Spider-Man will only be in the PlayStation 5 version of Marvel
Mm.
Avengers. I
Mm.
doubt anybody genuinely gives a shit, but suddenly the Sony fanboys are excited, and the memes are popping out. But yeah, from all the reports I've seen, Survivor's
And
review
Rocket
or
Chainsaw as well.
impressions of the
Yeah.
demo. Yeah, and they've said basically it's one of those games. It sounds like it's technically brilliant, but not good. And I've said that's happening a fair bit now. You're getting these games that are technically masterpieces, but not fun or worth playing.
Two points to make there. Number one, this is what I mean when I say to people that film gronks are taking over Sony. Do you know, they hear the name Spider-Man? Oh, that's an IP we can exploit. Oh, we'll have to work out some kind of arrangement for that because Sony owns that IP. It's like, you're fucking idiots. Like, and I think from their point of view, it's not. Obviously, the game's going to be crap, and tying the thing to that is not a big loss for them. But this goes to show you that the only reason they wouldn't have done it is if they stood to make more money on it being on cross-platform. Do you know what I mean? Like, if they were going to make more money out of it from Microsoft and Nintendo being able to access it, they might have allowed it. But the only reason that they didn't do it, like literally split this, this grand universe, is because it doesn't matter. It's not going to financially impact them enough for it to matter, which is just bizarre.
They've got to
Yeah.
sell PS5s.
Yeah,
Oh, look,
yeah.
they've got to sell. And like I said, the fanboys are excited, so it's worked,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, and
so,
the second part to that kind of it goes back to what we were saying. It's like, when we were talking about the review scores and stuff, is that it's hard to do a 10 scale list. It's hard to do, it's hard enough to do a 5 scale list for mine, let alone a 10 scale list, because we don't really have any 0 or 1s anymore. Do you know what I mean? If you're talking a 0 or 1, you're talking a game that someone made in their basement on Unreal, 4, right? That they're releasing on Steam for $3. So that's a 0 game. That's a 1 game, right? But games now are so technically proficient, even mediocre games are technically proficient enough that it's never really about, you can have buggy games that you will still play because a narrative will drive you on. I mean, this is the Fallout / Oblivion story from time immemorial. You will play them because you want to see the conclusion of these stories. You want to be taken on these grand narrative journeys. Obviously, that's been less true for 76 and 4, but it's still, that's what it's about. And it goes, with Avengers, it seems to be like, I did read through Steve's thing, and he's having problems with some clipping issues and various things. It is still beta. They haven't obviously put the last polishing patch out. There's all those things to consider with a beta. So yes, you have to factor that in, but just because it's technically proficient doesn't mean that it has soul. It doesn't mean that it has character. It doesn't mean that it's interesting. And for us, that's that New Game Plus philosophy for us, is that we would rather have something with soul that tries, and even if it succeeds or fails, it tried to do something. The author tried to create art. Whether they succeeded or failed, we can critique that. But on a technical level, it's harder and harder to find games that are just straight out broken. And it just doesn't happen in any meaningful way in that kind of way anymore. We were just playing Fall Guys on stream with Matt, me and Jack were, and Fall Guys is a great battle royale style game, similar to Takeshi's Castle. It's a knockout or wipeout or those kind of competitive obstacle course games, and it's fantastic. And then we compared it to Ninjala, which is the real cynical pseudo like Splatoon rip-off melee fighter. And then there's Bleeding Edge on Xbox, and there's all these like obviously focus tested games. And the reason that Fall Guys stands out is because it's a simple concept done with enough polish and love, and without you don't have to buy the season pass, you don't have to buy all these extras. You can still engage with the game in those basic formats, kind of no matter what. And I just, to me, it works. But I guess the difference is Fall Guys ask you to pay up front. But hey, who hates the idea of paying for their games up front? Like, what kind of world do we live in where that's considered a bizarre kind of thing to do? I don't know. I just think that Marvel. This is the game that you didn't get Deus Ex 3 for, Dermie. That's all I'll say. I mean, this is the game that means you don't get Deus Ex 3.
please. Yeah, I don't want to think about it. Anyway, I think this. I think what you've mentioned before, the movie influence on games, at least on the Sony side. But I think when you watch a Marvel superhero movie, it's polished and say take one like I'm going to be controversial. Black Panther. A really well made movie, but actually pretty shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because I'm racist and all that, whatever. But it wasn't a very good movie. But it was so polished, I still enjoyed watching it. So all of those movies, even Ant-Man, wasn't that great? But you know, they do all the things right.
The DC, like the DC argument, a lot of their movies, like I like some of the visual style they go for. I like some of that, but like they're just not like on a technical level. Like CG's even come a certain way where it's not as bad as it was, or not as noticeably not human as it was.
Star Wars prequel level,
yeah. But keep in mind that I live in a world where anime is a legitimate art form. So like whatever, do you know what I mean? Like I'm not scared of an animated character telling me something. Like it doesn't lose legitimacy because it's a cartoon telling me. Whereas like everyone seems to still have this notion that it's not real acting if it's not the physical person. I'm like, well that's pretty fucking dumb to begin with. Anyway, I just find it funny that. This is the reason you don't have Deus Ex 3. Like that's just the cruel irony of the universe coming to get you specifically.
Hates me. That's pretty clear from this year. It hates all of us. but yeah. I also was going to say, when you talk about a game that someone's released in Unreal Engine just out of their garage, to give it a 1 is almost really unfair because if you got a budget of several $1 million, you should make a good game. But if you're some hacker just sitting around trying to bang something together, and even if you make something crap, I think it's really unfair then to even compare the two.
Exactly. Yeah. No.
That's
course.
a 1. That's versus a 10. Anyway. There's another thing that Avengers is doing, and if I was already not keen, I'm less keen. You can actually earn in-game content for Fortnite by playing Avengers.
Nice.
This game can just fuck right off.
I don't know who at Square Enix, like the EU side and the Western side, decided this was the path we need to go down. We need to get this, this game that is released. Well, it'll be 3 years after the last Avengers movie, coming into a season where we don't know what's happening with the Avengers, where we can't use the faces or the likenesses because that's a different thing. I don't know who thought this was a good. I don't know who signed this deal, but they need to be fired. Like this is Matric level throw. I just don't understand who this is meant to appeal to. I just don't get it.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. Hey, I'm going to another PlayStation story since I'll keep them all sort of grouped together. 2 more. The first one, a good and a bad. First, the bad. PlayStation 4 controllers will not work with PS5 games.
Yes, that's well known, I think.
Now, Xbox did this from 360 to Xbox One. All the 360 controllers had to be thrown away, and the worst bit of that was my Guitar Hero and Rock Band controllers. Suddenly,
you had to go pay for an adapter for them, which was like a $30 US adapter. Like, still
didn't work for the drums. The drums, right? But yeah, and that was quite frustrating. Now, who's a guy? Spencer, from Xbox. Is that him?
Phil Spencer.
Steve's friend.
Steve's mate.
He basically said that from now on, every Xbox peripheral will work forever, and everything will work forever in the Xbox Series. But yeah, Sony's doing that jump now. It'll be interesting to see how many people are happy or unhappy with it, because if you've got a couple of controllers lying around, I mean that's a couple $100 worth of hardware that just got to throw out. You might have more if you bought a couple of controllers. It might be worth more than what you spend on the console.
I mean, the handy part with it as well is like Sony, like DualShocks will now work on PCs and they'll work through Bluetooth, and usually Steam will load a profile that covers PS4 controllers, but Microsoft ones would work. Like I can actually use it now while I'm talking to you to access menus and stuff like that on my Windows PC. That kind of integration in itself is great. Like, and that's just a cord plugged into an Xbox controller. Like, I wish I could find my cabled 360 controller, just because I still think 360 is about as good as controllers ever got. And so I'd love to be able to do it, but I just can't find it. And having that ability to connect and stuff, like you say, it makes sense for them not to like gate these things behind generations anymore. It just doesn't make any sense to do so.
generations is dumb, and I think Microsoft's done the right thing by not
Yeah.
having them. Nintendo might still have generations because people just can't stop buying their stuff every
Mm.
time they re-release it. So Nintendo has no motivation to stop, and we'll see how Sony goes as well. But now a good one. Now I actually hate saying this, but Sony has done something, or at least patented something that I reckon is overdue and about time,
Mm.
and that is being able to share saves.
Mm.
In the old days, you just used to chuck them on a
Memory
floppy
card or
disk.
whatever, yeah. Or a memory card for the console plebs,
Memory
yeah.
card,
Yeah.
you kids,
Yeah.
floppy disk. So, but yeah, so the I see because some that sort of people overlook is the real value in the game. If you played for a long time, is your save.
Mm.
It's the work you put in. That's your time and effort.
It's a thing that'll
And
make you go back to a game or not. Like if you go, Monster Hunter's example. Jodie kept losing her save file. In the end, what she does now is every week she updates it, like she backdates it, backs it up.
yep.
Because she kept losing her save, and that was all these hours she spent. Like I'm at 100, I'm at 200 plus now. I think now I was 190 the other day. Now I hit 200. Um, that's on PC. I've also got time on PS4. I've also got a little bit of muck around time on Xbox. And I'm like, it's not necessarily the game that's the problem. It's losing that progress. Like if I lost all that progress, I'm not convinced I'd start again. Luckily, we'd have people around who could, drag me through quests super quick. Like we just smash through it, get to late game, start up again. It wouldn't take too long. But yeah, that's the thing. Like especially stuff like Fallout New Vegas or whatever the case may be. You get those games where you start connecting all these dots and you start playing, for the 150, 200 hours. The saves are more important than anything else. And that people won't leave platforms for saves. You know what I mean? So they'll either not buy games once or because they're like, oh well, I can only play it on this console and therefore I'm stuck playing it on that console, so therefore I just won't buy it. So the idea of being able to kind of liberate saves from that is a better step. That's probably one of the more consumer friendly steps in a long time.
So we need to go further down that path and recognise that the saves are they are the bit I reckon that the gamer owns because
Yes,
that's the time they
it's their
put in.
experience. Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
semi the argument for Twitch is like as much as it's like you're playing our product and outside of like leaked copies and that kind of thing. That's kind of the argument for Twitch is that no matter what, it's still your gameplay. Like as much as it's their game and that kind of stuff, it's your gameplay. So therefore, it's a new product inherently. Like you may be using X as the platform to launch that thing off, but that's like saying I made this chair using a lathe or a saw I bought, so therefore it's the saw owns it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that weird part of IP law where that happens. Yet obviously still the music industry and the movie industry is still so far behind that they'll copyright strike if you have a copyrighted song in a Twitch stream. But you know what I mean? Like I think in a lot of ways that's the argument that a lot of publishers and stuff make when it comes to things like Twitch and stuff.
Well, they like to own everything.
Mm,
Their default position, and because they're afraid of giving anything at all up because
They could make money on
if
it.
they yeah, down the track. It's the same reason why your retro stuff's always been so hampered because
Mm,
there's games you can't buy on any console, but the rights are still bought and sold
mm.
because somebody might want to make money off it in the future. They don't want somebody else impacting that. But anyway, save
Yeah.
games I think are what the gamer. I do believe that's their property. I think good on Sony for at least doing something that respects that a bit. I
Mm.
don't know the details. Like I said, it's a patent thing, and companies patent these things left,
All the
right, and
time.
centre
Yeah, yeah.
just to hang on to it. I mean, IBM's the king of that. But yeah,
Definitely.
hopefully that goes further with that one. Being able to not just share saves, but just be able to get them away from things. Now, this leads me into one where somebody who's really bad at it. You probably know
Mm.
which one I'm going to mention. Animal Crossing on the Switch. Now,
Yes.
there's a lot of time. I know I've seen the time my daughter's put in and some of her friends into making their island, and it is hundreds of hours already, right? And so if they lose their Switch, it's tied to the console. If they lose their Switch or it gets stolen or whatever, that island can be gone. Now, Nintendo's finally announced the ability to back that up, which is great at Nintendo. I mean, should have been there day one for a game
Mm.
like that. But now, if I'm reading this right, you can't just restore it. You can't restore it. You have to contact Nintendo and have them give you your backup. I'll be rolling.
Yes,
Have
but yeah, and
I
you
read
also
that wrong? Because that is
you've got to have you've got to have Switch Online. You got to have Switch Online, and it's got to automatically back up. It now tells you in the bottom left or top left corner that when the last backup was done. So pardon me. You can find force backups if you have to,
more
which
than
are
Nintendo.
yeah. Or you can force backups like certain ways and stuff. But yeah, like it makes a big deal of like the way you have to back up and stuff. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have my Switch in front of me, unfortunately. I'm not 100% sure that you do need to go through them, but I know that if you don't have those provisions in place, I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you have to file a ticket with them, and then they give you a code to download it or something. Because this is the thing, Nintendo will do everything to 95%. Everything will be perfect 95%, and then there will always be one dumb thing they do that just hampers it from being as good as it could be, as accessible or whatever. And this is true across their design decisions. This is true across their the way they run the company. Like there's always these caveats to what could be a great idea. Nintendo are hampered with them. It's just that sometimes their ideas in their games are so good that it doesn't matter. One of the worst ones for Smash, for example, was when Smash Brawl was on the Wii U, and it's the reason that no one plays. Sorry, on the Wii, and the reason no one plays the Wii version of Super Smash Brothers is because tripping was introduced as a random mechanic, so you couldn't make an esport of it because you don't know if you're going to just randomly trip. And I'm like, if you could turn that off, it'd be fine. The first thing people would do is turn it off. But that was that thing in that era. Nintendo didn't believe in choices, so they just stopped you from making choices on how to, if you wanted to turn that off. And so they always do this. They'll do like 95% of something, and it'll be like, yeah, good, this is a really good. But there's always some stupid caveat they put on top of it that stops it from being what it actually needs to be, as opposed to what they want it to be.
We talked about the decisions made with like Avengers and that earlier in the movies, and we talked about even back to Blizzard. What you see with those things is an insight into the psyche of your middle management
Yes.
climbing person who it's about control, it's about them, and that's really that's a manifestation of that comes out
there was an
in
interesting
the
article I
product.
read. There's an interesting article I read a while ago, and it's a very good point. From GameIndustry.biz. And again, a great site.
Not a bad site, yeah.
Yeah. And so they did a great article about the Matric era, and this was about 3 weeks after Matric announced all the horrendous changes they were going to get for Xbox One. The idea of licensing and the idea of blah blah blah. And the argument that he made was this is a reflection of how they think, because to them it's not a controversial topic. They live in a software world. You're only ever licensing that. Do you know what I mean? Like you have all these programs and all this kind of stuff, and they were already well and truly moving to a licensing model before any of this. So it was always, you need to be online to access it. You need to be all of these, people would consider them very user unfriendly things, and I consider them to be that as well. But like, it was a known quantity. It just made sense to them because that's how things are done. And that was where Sony were brilliant, was they just swooped in and made sure that they put the tap on that narrative. They tapped into the gaming zeitgeist better than Microsoft did at that point. Because like you say, that was the mindset of the middle managers and all these people who are dealing with this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, it makes sense. You know what I mean? But just because it makes sense doesn't mean it's a good move, and doesn't mean you won't be like punished in the market for it, like Microsoft was. And they really were. Like they copped the deserved flogging that they absolutely deserved every bit of bad press they got through that era, because they just ruined the way that licensing and all that kind of stuff works. And they've only just started to kind of come out of that nosedive now and start to gain some serious momentum. But yeah, like you said, it can really be reflective of the culture, especially in your middle managers, especially in your people who have to achieve the lofty goals that the CEO sets, and just view it from the lens of, well, this is how things are done. And that's that problem with that complacent, middle manager kind of spot in the hierarchy.
So a manifestation of the management of the company's thought processes and the type of people they are. All right, Sony Payton. I've got some Halo Infinite news.
Yes.
Let's go with that. Do you remember that bingo card, that E3 bingo card, where it was a year or two ago, where basically every game had a battle royale mode? So, bingo, because Halo Infinite actually apparently is getting a battle royale mode, which is probably, I mean, Call of Duty's mode, was it Warfare? The Call of Duty battle royale mode. Can't remember what it's
Warzone.
called.
Warzone.
Warzone, that's it. Yeah, Car plays a lot. Streaming.
Yes.
It looks cool. Now, that's somewhere where I when I heard that announced, I thought that makes sense. That's a place where I haven't played it much. I got locked in a prison and killed and
Yeah,
and
you got gulagged. Yeah, you got gulagged.
pulled my parachute too early and smashed myself.
Yeah, nice.
So I was very good at it. But I got through training. But no, but Halo is a game where actually when I read that, I thought Halo Infinite Battle Royale mode makes sense.
It's already got the open map.
Yeah, because often you go, oh, it's just tacked on. It's like, and that bingo card was funny with Sims Battle Royale, which actually what some people do play. But Halo Infinite one, I actually, it's actually probably the first one I'll actually bother play because I tried, what was that one that was supposed to be Titanfall, but it wasn't. It was garbage. Couldn't stand it.
Apex. Apex Legends.
Apex. Ooh, what a load of shit. Oh man. Oh god. I understand why Ninja only played it while he was getting paid.
That was so funny that it was literally he got paid for like 12 hours or something, and then literally on 12 hours and 1 minute he turned off his stream. He's actually back on Twitch at the moment.
Yeah, I would have spent the last 11 hours of that just looking at the clock. I tell you.
Yeah. He's back on Twitch with no subscribe button. Like they haven't even partnered his channel, so he's got 67,000 people on Twitch at the moment watching him, and he's got no subscribe button. So he obviously hasn't had that conversation with Twitch just yet. So I think he's trying to force it over the top. So yeah.
Did we ever find out why that doctor
Nah, still no real word from Doc. Yeah, he released some video a while ago. I think I'm pretty sure it was like a small clip or whatever. And then I know someone who does like animations. He's one of the streamers that he does like rounds from all the streamers, the big streamers. He was working on something for him. Like he'd been commissioned to do something, and it'll never see the light of day. Which is an interesting statement. Yeah, an interesting statement in and of itself. You know what I mean? Like, he goes, yeah, it's just sad that I just made something that'll never see the light of day. So I don't know. It is interesting, but I don't know. You should try Fall Guys. Fall Guys is a lot of fun. Have you haven't got a PlayStation in your house, do you? PS4. Are you there?
You tell the funniest jokes.
Yeah, look. Yeah, I don't know. I've got to ask because it is free on PlayStation Plus. So,
okay. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm happy for it. So, what we like next story? Hello Infinite, blah. All right, cool. I'm almost at the end. I think the only one left is xCloud launches in September on Android, but not in Australia because we're the back end of the world. Interesting to see. It would have been really cool if Microsoft had their own phone at any point with their own operating system, and if they couldn't sell them, say if they made their own phone, right? And they had a really low market share. They were coming third easy, and they just really couldn't make any inroads. Can you imagine how handy it would have been to stream? And did you know that you could? Yeah, you could. The dev phones actually could do. They could stream Xbox content to them, games and that, and play them. Yep. But the consumer ones, it was always turned off. So it was always there. So imagine throwing your phone away like that. And now it's coming out on Android, and soon it'll be iPhone. Coming out on Android in September. Finally, what you could do on Windows Phone if you were a developer, what's that, 5 years ago now, around that? Geez, Microsoft. I mean, I give them some good comments here, but sometimes they're idiots.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've still got my Surface RT, and I remember when we had we used to stream, we had the Xbox One launch stream and stuff like that, and that's when they were pushing Smart Glass, and Smart Glass worked okay, you know what I mean? Like, it was fine. Like, there was a game, can't remember what game we were playing, and for inventory management, it was infinitely better than the system in game, and that was obviously to incentivize you to use it, but like, Yeah, you can't build a platform on this basic shit, guys. Like you need to get, there needs to be a cool killer app, and the app store for Apple always had the fact that it's usually pretty moderated. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a much safer bet to buy an app on Apple than it is to buy it anywhere else. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like Android's the Wild West, but that's the appeal of the Wild West. Whereas Microsoft,
Well,
if they had something that would be so.
yeah, well, that would have been a killer app for Microsoft. Actually, I remember at one point there was 11 different Commonwealth NetBank
Mm,
apps on the Android App Store, and only one of them
yeah.
was actually made by Commonwealth
Yep.
Bank.
Yep.
So yeah. But anyway, look. So XCloud coming well soon. So on Android, it would be interesting to try it out. Although we'll see how it goes. It's
You
not in
just
Australia
use
yet, but it will
GPS
be at some
spoof it,
point.
I guess. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't dick around with the phone like that. In the old days, I would have tried to piss around with that, but these days I don't play with that too much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Right now, the other one is one last Halo thing. RIP console gamers, you're all dead because Halo's getting crossplay. So
And did you
anybody
see
with
the
a
other one as well?
controller, what?
Halo's multiplayer is going to be free to play online. Like it's going to be Halo is going to be a free to play online game. So you know how previously we thought that they'll roll Xbox Gold or Live Gold into Game Pass. It looks like they're just going to do away with Xbox Live Gold and have the Azure servers take the load anyway, and then make Game Pass the upsell.
Oh, so they're basically doing it, but not saying it.
Yeah.
So they are rolling it in.
Mm.
Because I did see someone on Facebook claiming, oh well, the Xbox Live Gold is dead. Well, it's not really. It's just
Well, no, 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 no,
what
no.
Microsoft sees changing.
Well, but no, it'll mean that you can still play multi. So to play multiplayer on Xbox at the moment, you need gold, right? You need to have
Yeah,
Xbox Live Gold to do it, and they started that. They were one of the first ones to do that. But that was
yeah.
in an era where they hadn't set up Azure servers, and that the infrastructure required for gaming wasn't in place because they didn't think there was as much money to be made. But now they all realize that the $500 to $1 billion you pay maintaining your servers will make you 10 billion, so you just suck it up and do it. Do you know what I mean? And so
Paying somebody else, like say
yeah.
Disney Plus is paying Amazon for all their hosting and that,
Mm.
and I don't know who Sony's paying, but yeah,
I'm
Microsoft's
pretty sure
paying
Sony's
themselves.
Amazon now too. Sony's now Amazon
Yeah,
because of all the breaches that they had. I don't know if you remember all those breaches they had for when the security,
yeah.
when the people's credit cards got nicked. Yeah, it was because of that. But yeah, no, I think that'll have, instead of it being gold becoming Game Pass, it'll be the games with gold and all those elements and the ongoing kind of rental library will become Game Pass. But I think. As far as online multiplayer goes, rumor has it that it'll be free for online multiplayer. It means that gold does die, gold becomes redundant, and Game Pass becomes the upsell into the Xbox ecosystem, which is unsurprising.
Makes perfect sense. And
Yeah.
if you're going to do Game Pass and people are going to buy it, then they might as well play against each other. They're already
Mm.
paying you money.
And
It
that
makes
way, yeah, and
makes
the way you're
sense.
incentivizing people, let's say someone does just, I'm just going to buy Halo, whatever, blah, 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 and then their mates talk about, realistically, if you're going to buy, let's say there's one Microsoft exclusive year you want to buy, right? Maybe, let's say two, because Microsoft exclusives tend to be, $79 as opposed to $100, right? So let's say in Australia, there's two Microsoft games a year you want to buy, State of Decay and Halo, right? Both good choices, Gears Tactics, Gears 5, all these, Forza Horizon, all this stuff. It costs you it just will straight up cost you $150 for those two games, $160, right? But if you have Game Pass, well, you'd get all of them included in your Game Pass sub ongoing, plus a bunch of other stuff, plus a bunch of exclusive things that come up. So every exclusive Microsoft game falls under Game Pass. It sounds like we're shilling for them. It sounds like we're getting paid by them, and we ain't. It's just the value proposition is insane. It's insane how good the value proposition is.
Well, look, I remember the days when Sony people used to go, you don't have to pay to play online. with PlayStation, but you do it with the Xbox, ha ha ha, and then suddenly Sony introduced it. They're like, oh no, that's a good idea. So,
Yeah. It was because they did it for PS4. Like when they announced PS4, like, oh, we're gonna create PlayStation Plus. But with PlayStation Plus on PS3, we're gonna give you all these old great games from that generation that you might have missed. But again, PlayStation Plus, when they started doing that, God, that was a great idea. That was such a good counter to Microsoft, because it was like, here's these great games that you've not played anywhere else. Well, now that we're in PS4 era, they're gone back the other way, where they're like, oh, here's 2 games you've never heard of for free. Great,
generally,
yeah.
in the last year or so, I reckon the games I've seen on Xbox Gold have been nowhere near as good as the games I reckon I've seen each month on PSN. Normally, I see it and I go, "Well, the PlayStation games are good this month," and that's been happening like more and more often.
They've both gotten bad lately, I think. I think in the last year, or occasionally they'll drop a big one, but Microsoft saves them all for Game Pass now. You know what I mean? Like, so instead of it going to Thing after a couple of months, Microsoft will say, well, how about we just give you another $1 million and we just have it from launch? And okay, and that's what, because Fall Guys we were discussing before, that's what happens on PS Plus. It's free on PS Plus from launch. Like, so they've basically tried to do the Game Pass thing, and Devolver we're going to sign up with someone. Do you know what I mean? Like, realistically, that kind of game
That's a
needs.
Devolver game, is it?
Yeah, and so
Oh,
it
I
needs the
want to play
player
it now.
base.
It's good.
Yeah. It needs the player base. You know what I mean? Games like that, those battle royales, they definitely need the player base, and especially one that's not violent or is not coming in on an existing IP's kind of coattails. Like Call of Duty had the advantage of, they tried it before with Black Ops 4. They had Blackout or whatever it was called. And so it took them a couple of bites of the cherry before they got to Warzone. And Warzone's a fantastic game, even if their anti-cheat system's a little bit too severe. But like, there needs to be, because of how many people cheat the game, kind of full stop. So, yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. I think that is going to be the big battle. Is again, and it goes back to that conversation that Microsoft and Sony are running different races now, and I think they really are to an extent. So this is going to see which one is going to be more successful: the traditional console generational jump angle, or the we want you in our ecosystem angle. And while Disney and all these people, they had to cannibalize these shows they'd sold to Netflix in order to accomplish that. I think Microsoft has a distinct advantage of no one in gaming is really doing it. Like Humble Bundle tried to do it; it was all indie games, and it just didn't work quite as well. And they didn't have the money to kind of behind it to bring in these big games. But like I was saying, the guys on stream the other day is like, slag off Halo all you want. It sells games. Like, it will sell it'll sell 10 million Xboxes by itself. You know what I mean? Ignore any other release titles, ignore anything else that might potentially be coming out. It will sell 10 million copies. No worries. And that will translate into sales for the new Xbox console. Granted, you can just play the Xbox One version, and if you buy it once, you own it across the board. Absolutely true as well. But I still think it will drive sales of the console. But again, it's not necessarily about driving sales of the console. It's about driving people into the ecosystem. And if that's what Microsoft want to accomplish, then I think that they'll be very successful in doing so, as long as they keep up these good moves and don't start making some silly calls.
Microsoft has the only real competitor to Amazon's ecosystem setup, infrastructure, I'll call that.
Yep.
And so they don't have to pay anybody for it.
Yep.
They just have to pay their costs. So
exactly, and that goes back to that conversation about PS3, because everyone says, PS3 at least you don't have to pay for multiplayer. It's like, yeah, but the servers suck, and it's really heavy PvP, like peer-to-peer networking. Whereas like with Gold, was at least the matchmaking was better, and all these things could be put on top of, because there was an ongoing server cost being attached to it. But yeah, Microsoft now, I guess that's where their head's at. It's like, well, our Azure servers are so good, we kind of don't need people to pay for it anymore. And if we can then take that cost and turn it into an incentive, even better. Because you're right, I think they're the only people in the world that could potentially do that. And Google might try and leverage it with Stadia. I mean, Phil Spencer himself said that he considers Google and Stadia to be more of an obstacle for them than Sony, which, I mean, I think Stadia will be DOA by 2 or 3 years in. So
It's only
yeah.
an obstacle if you're tripping over discarded Stadia
Yeah,
consoles and
yeah, yeah,
controllers.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Stadia is empty. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. As far as the Halo crossplay goes, RIP console gamers, because if you've ever seen how PC gamers how quick they
Mm.
can aim their Twitch movements, you're in a world of pain. You
Yeah,
won't get a kill. So
I think it's going to
it'll be
be one of
fun
those
though.
things where it'll detect. There'll be a chip inside the Xbox control that will detect whether it's an Xbox controller or not, and then that'll be and then or what they'll do is they'll limit like stick movement to a certain extent that you can't necessarily run a keyboard mouse, or they'll keep the matchmaking pools as distinct as possible unless they need to bump numbers, and then they'll put them together.
Put the mouse on really slow response to
Mm.
even up. All right, hey, we talked about Game Pass and that and all the setup. There was a few stories last week about AAA game prices going up, and I did find that weird because really in an age of Game Pass, I didn't think it really mattered that the AAA game prices might go up by $20 when really that's really only going to affect people buying their PlayStation games, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that this is one of those things. I mean, they tried it in the GameCube era. Like they wanted to sell Resident Evil 4 on GameCube for $120. Like its RRP was 120, and they've started trying to sneakily do it on the digital stores with the digital exclusive versions and all that kind of stuff. But the problem with it is they've never included anything worthwhile for the digital versions. You know what I mean? It's not like buying a digital version. You got anything good. It was you get some starter guns and some extra money and some all this shit that you don't really need. It was just not enough to justify 10, $15 IRL cash. And I think that they're going to find that it's not a good idea to do 120 again. I think because they want to delineate, $100 is what you paid for last generation. This generation, though, and again, I don't think that's Microsoft's game this time, so I doubt that they'll try that. And I think even Nintendo learned its lesson on that one. But I think Sony's going to be the ones to test out whether it's actually a viable solution. And I hope it's not, because $120 is dumb. Like, they're still making billions of dollars at the current price. It's okay for them only to make it's okay for them to lose a couple of million because they're making billions. It's okay for them to lose some money. I don't feel sad.
That's communism, son. That's
Mm-hmm.
you commie bastard.
Yeah, I know, right? I had to explain. What a watermelon was to someone, to the boys on stream today, and I'm like, because I'm wearing watermelon skin. So I'm only wearing a watermelon skin because people already accuse me of being a commie. And they're like, well, what does a watermelon have to do with being a communist? I'm like, you're green on the outside, but you're pinko on the inside. And they're like, I've never heard that one. I'm like, fuck. And now I feel old.
Yeah, you're an old man. All right, cool. I'm pretty much run out. I do think out of all that, I reckon expect a lot more Spider-Man shenanigans from Sony.
I think
In
that
this
is a
gen.
sign of things to come. 100%.
Yep.
Like they did it because they know it couldn't hurt them, and it's a toe in the water for them to see if it was worth them keeping the exclusivity. And the only reason that they wouldn't do it is if they think they could make more money not doing it. And I think that they'll try it again on something bigger. Just watch that space.
Properties. Yeah, they have properties they can leverage, so it's an advantage they have.
And that
Microsoft
is the
doesn't.
one thing. Again, we said that Microsoft obviously has reasonably good hardware to keep up with thing. And keep in mind that the era of the 360 into the Xbox One transition was actually not a great hardware era for Microsoft. Do you know what I mean? Like that was the Bulmer era, just coming at the end of that, where they were losing a lot of ground in that space. Whereas
Never put a lawyer in charge of an IT company.
correct, yeah, and
Oh,
unless you're
God.
Apple, and then you might make some money. I guess he was an arch. He was a marketeer, wasn't he? And you can't always luck out. Okay, you can't always luck out and have someone who's working for you like Wozniak, who in his day was like just literally like ahead of the curve and ahead of that kind of thing by so much.
Every major tech company had one guy that did all the work and
Yeah,
a salesman.
yeah,
Or a very wealthy salesman normally.
yeah.
But yeah, one guy did the work, and he normally ended up quite rich,
Yeah.
and the salesman ended up 3 times as rich.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's one of those
just
things
how
like
it's always worked.
it's like what was got screwed over in the early days, but they paid him out. They paid him out for the bad publicity of it, and he'll never work another day in his life, which is fine because in a lot of ways he earned that quote unquote to an extent, but he'll never be as rich as Jobs was, and there's very few people who would be. But I think, like, going back to that point, Microsoft's advantage is the fact that their hardware is competitive to things like Amazon, AWS and stuff. And that's Microsoft's advantage. But the one thing they can't do is leverage it like a lot of IP, like Sony can, and that is probably Sony's one advantage. So I just wouldn't be surprised if they push that harder. And it's going to be, like I say, it's going to be interesting now that Funimation and Sony, I'm pretty sure Sony owns a reasonable amount of Funimation. How far they will leverage that when it comes to like anime and stuff, it'll be interesting to see.
Your film gronks in business. All right, now you got any news? I've run out of stories.
The only one that's funny. Did you see the Mulan thing? Did I read it properly?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, you got to pay for yourself.
Article?
Yeah. So you have to buy your Disney Plus, and then you have to pay $30 to rent the movie. Yeah. So Mulan's only headed for a major theatrical release. Blah blah blah. It'll debut its live-action blockbuster on the subscription stream service Disney Plus. But this is not happening. Customers will have to pay an additional $29.99 on top of the monthly subscription to rent Mulan. That is mental.
I don't mind the concept, right? Because I think the idea of being able to sit down and watch a brand new release movie at home and pay a bit more is appealing. $30, and I think we're talking US dollars, so it's going to be closer to 50 in Australia. I might as well just go to the movies.
But it's my home. But it's my TV, it's my hardware, it's my setup. You've contributed nothing except the IP. Yeah, you've contributed nothing except the IP. So if I'm already paying you a subscription fee for your IP, then you can go fuck yourself. Like, as politely as I can put it, and that is polite for me. Go fuck yourself. Like, if you're saying, oh hey, what we can do is we can get these top tier THX Dolby sound systems and these literally meter wide screens and put them in a room together where everyone can get together and watch the movie, I'd pay for that. I'd pay a little bit extra for that service. I believe it was called a cinema. At some point, I don't know if cinemas are still alive.
Before Dictator Dan locked us in our homes.
My God. Look, I'm just going to call it out there now. Like, if you're one of the gronks who uses Dictator Dan or Chairman Dan unironically, like, just go fuck yourself. Just
Did you know
fuck yourself.
Twitter the other day? Now, people in America say Twitter hates conservatives. The other day, Twitter had Dictator Dan top trending in Australia on 3,000 tweets, and the second was like Hillary Clinton on 700,000 tweets, and the third was Trump on 1.7 million. I'm going, people that think Twitter's anti-conservative are insane. They
absolutely.
Dictator Dan 3,000 tweets, and they had a top trending in Australia. What a bunch of wankers.
No. Look, I don't know. It's I think if no one's enjoying this. Like, again, I'm a night cretin. This is us going political again. I'm a night cretin. I didn't wake up today until 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Right, I'm 100%. I've always been this way. You know this. Like,
you're a teenager.
I'll say. Well, no, but I always have been. Like, I was like this when I was a little kid. Like, I mean, when I was like younger, I still would always rather wake up late and go to sleep. Wake up late and go to sleep late. Go to sleep at 2, 3 in the morning for school, and get up and be awful for school, and then come home and sleep for 2 hours, and then stay up the rest of the night. Like, that was how I've always. I'm just a night owl, and some people are. I think everyone. We've had this conversation a few times. I think sometimes people had to. Someone in the tribe had to be awake late at night to make sure the wolves didn't get everyone. So I think that there's certain people are just wired that way.
Yeah, that's my theory. Yeah, because as we were coming from monkeys to humans, you couldn't have everybody asleep at the same time. That was actually quite dangerous. So you had to have a percentage, not all of them, because it is dangerous to be awake at night. You had to have a percentage awake at night time. Before we found dogs and had them bark at everything.
And so because of that, like the fact is, like, today I had to look at the time and go, oh, shit, it's 9:30. It's about quarter to 10, 9:30, quarter to 10. I'm like, shit, if I don't order food now, like, I'm gonna have to rely on cooking. And I've had a headache earlier today, so I've taken my pills and stuff for that. And I'm like, I don't think I'm capable of cooking. I mean, I'm recording this podcast under the influence technically, so I mean, I consider that a lower priority than things. But more the point is, like, I was but I had to order it in time. Whereas normally it'd be like, worst comes, I'll nap for an hour, and then I'll just go get like Hungry Jack's or Macca's in an hour. If I really feel hungry and I can't be bothered doing it. Whereas now I kind of have to like factor that in. Like I went to the shops today, and it was the biggest shop I've done in ages, like $190 for basically just me. And yeah, most of that was the fact that I'm like, cool. Well, now I have to plan a week in advance, and people go, "Oh, welcome to being an adult." But it's like, well, no, you shouldn't buy stuff like you should buy food as fresh as you can possibly buy it, because it's better.
$190 of toilet paper.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's all it was.
Toilet paper and pasta.
Yeah. It was a kilo of lean beef, a couple of packets of chips, and then about 9 tons of toilet paper. That's all it was. But yeah,
hey.
Sorry,
I was gonna say anybody who doesn't watch it, Internet Historian on YouTube has a really good video about the toilet paper panic in Australia recently. If you haven't seen Internet Historian, check it out on YouTube.
So the point to me is like, you think Dan Andrews wants to risk re-election and do this shit? Like, do you genuinely think he wants to risk? Do you think it's some part of some communist power play? Like, it just goes to show you how far off the rails Sky News is. Like, it's bizarre. But like, I don't know. So some people, so you can't talk sense to some people. So.
Do you remember when we used to do a podcast about video games? Me
neither. Look,
anyway,
you said, is there any other news you have at the end? And then you got me started on something like that, so I don't feel bad.
I did. I avoided at the start. I even threw in an Alexander Downer quick
just
at the start. So
to feed the dog, it's like sneaking in a secure property and you just throw a steak over so the dog so you can run over and steal stuff.
Except the dog's a bear.
Yeah. And it hasn't got a taste for steak anymore.
All right, cool. Well, all right. I'm out of news, and we're just crapping on.
We're faffling now. So from our point of view, we've got obviously Cash Warriors. They've got the Melbourne Melee streams coming up soon. Jack is showcasing a new form of the show on Saturday night for live stream. So if you are interested, do check that out. And basically we'll start proper filming for the show again on Thursday. We go back to air and Bob's your uncle. So it should all be very good. Lots of video games to cover. Obviously, there's been lots of stuff out that we have to do videos for. With lockdown, it's actually giving me more time to refine the tech setup. So I'm at that point now where I can actually motivate myself to do it. But yeah, interesting times.
It's time in history to play video games, so do so. So anyway, so newgameplus.tv is the website. Go there. Everything's there. All the old podcasts, all the videos. Go check out all the stuff I did. It's better than all the rest. It's really good. So I'll throw that in.
I'll tell Jack you said that. Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, I like Jack stuff. Jack's good. Anyway, now I'm in trouble. Go newgameplus.tv. Buy merch if I ever get to the post office. I'll try and send it if I'm allowed to. And what else we got?
Remind me about that, because I've got something to send to. Murasaki Game is. I'm at the kind of last stage of negotiations, but obviously when one of the main partners you're talking to is in Melbourne as well, it makes things very difficult. So, but no, I've already got content plans and I've started filming content, so it should hopefully be coming live very, very soon. But as far
Japanese,
as like doing everything we do,
a Japanese focused subset of all the New Game Plus stuff. So that's a fair
even more Japanese focused. We should probably calibrate.
Even more. We'll go with that. All right, cool. So newgameplus.tv. That's it. We've gone way over time.
Let's wrap it up.
Week. Yeah, good. Bye.